Silence shattered. A gunshot. Echoes in the night. Lawrence, Kansas, July 17, 2013. The night was quiet. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees. The stars twinkled above, casting a peaceful glow on the sleeping town. At 11:33 p.m., a single gunshot pierced the silence. The sharp crack echoed through the neighborhood, rousing residents from their sleep. Fear gripped the hearts of those who heard it. What had happened? Who was in danger? The gunshot originated from a modest house on the outskirts of town. It belonged to Gary Edens, a hard-working man known for his kindness and generosity. Gary was a beloved member of the community. He was a friend to all, always willing to lend a helping hand. But on this night, his life would be tragically cut short. The gunshot that echoed through the night was a harbinger of tragedy. It signaled the end of a life and the beginning of a nightmare for all involved. The peace of Lawrence, Kansas, had been shattered, leaving behind a community grappling with shock and disbelief. The silence of the night was gone, replaced by the wail of sirens as police cars raced towards the scene. The sound of the sirens grew louder and louder, a chilling reminder that something was terribly wrong. Neighbors peered out their windows, their faces etched with worry and fear. What they didn't know was that their quiet community would never be the same. The town of Lawrence, Kansas was now a place of unease, the tranquility of the night forever altered by the sound of that single gunshot. 11:33 p.m. would be a time etched in the memories of the residents, a moment when their world was turned upside down. Police officers quickly cordoned off the area, their faces grim as they began their investigation. The forensic team arrived, meticulously collecting evidence, piecing together the events that led to the tragic gunshot. Residents gathered outside, talking in hushed tones, their minds racing with questions and fears. The police took statements from witnesses, trying to understand what had transpired in the quiet town. As dawn approached, the town of Lawrence, Kansas, was left to grapple with the aftermath of the night's events. Troubled waters, the dispute over a car. The events leading up to the fateful gunshot began a few weeks earlier. Gary Edens had allowed a woman named Brittny Marie Adams to borrow his car. Brittny was a young woman struggling to make ends meet. She saw Gary's offer as a lifeline, a chance to get back on her feet. However, things took a turn for the worse when Brittny failed to return the car as promised. Days turned into weeks, and Gary grew increasingly concerned. He tried contacting Brittny, but she was evasive, offering excuses and empty promises. Frustration mounted, and what began as a simple act of kindness spiraled into a point of contention. Gary felt betrayed by Brittny's actions. He had trusted her, and she had taken advantage of his good nature. He decided to take matters into his own hands, reaching out to Brittny one last time to demand the return of his car. The conversation was tense, filled with anger and resentment. The dispute over the car became a source of stress and anxiety for Gary. He confided in his friends and family, expressing his frustration and disappointment. Little did he know that this seemingly ordinary disagreement would have devastating consequences. setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of his life. He had no idea of the danger lurking on the horizon. The car, now with high mileage, had become a symbol of the growing tension between Gary and Brittny. Brittny too was feeling the weight of the situation. She knew she had to return the car, but fear and pride held her back. Gary spent many nights alone, deep in thought, wondering how a simple act of kindness had led to such turmoil. Brittny confided in a friend, expressing her distress and uncertainty about what to do next. The final text message from Gary was clear and direct. He wanted his car back. No more excuses. Brittny knew she had to make a decision. The tension had reached a boiling point and something had to give. Gary's friends tried to console him, but the frustration and betrayal he felt were overwhelming. Brittny paced back and forth, her mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. The car key in her hand felt heavy, a reminder of the responsibility she had taken on and failed to fulfill. Gary looked at a photo of his car, a symbol of the trust he had placed in Brittny, and the disappointment he now felt. Brittny made a phone call, determined to resolve the situation once and for all. Gary received the call, a glimmer of hope in his eyes as he listened to Brittny's voice. Time seemed to stand still as the conversation unfolded, each word carrying the weight of their strained relationship. They agreed to meet in a neutral location, hoping to find a resolution to their dispute. The atmosphere was tense as they faced each other, both knowing that this meeting could change everything. A search gone wrong. Brittny's fatal encounter. On the evening of July 17th, Brittny, accompanied by a friend, decided to retrieve the car from Gary's house. She had no intention of returning it to him. Instead, she planned to take it without his knowledge or consent. Driven by a sense of desperation and fueled by anger, Brittny set off on a course that would lead to irreversible tragedy. As darkness fell, Brittny and her companion arrived at Gary's home. They parked a short distance away, their faces hidden in the shadows. The street was quiet, the houses dark. The only sound was the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of traffic. Brittny approached Gary's front door, her heart pounding in her chest. She raised her hand and knocked softly, hoping to avoid any confrontation. When Gary answered the door, Brittny's plan unraveled. A heated argument erupted, fueled by weeks of simmering tension and mistrust. Fear and anger collided on that fateful night. What began as a dispute over a car escalated into a life or death struggle. In the heat of the moment, a single gunshot rang out, forever silencing Gary Eden's kind heart. The aftermath was chaotic. Police arrived swiftly, their flashing lights illuminating the dark street. Brittny was taken into custody, her face a mask of shock and regret. The community was left to grapple with the tragic news. Tears flowed, and disbelief hung heavy in the air. A memorial was set up for Gary, candles flickering in the night as the community mourned the loss of a beloved friend. Brittny faced trial, the weight of her actions bearing down on her. The courtroom was filled with tension as the details of that night were laid bare. The judge delivered the verdict, a somber atmosphere enveloping the room. Justice was served, but the scars left behind would take much longer to heal. The community of Lawrence, Kansas, began the slow process of healing. They came together, supporting one another as they tried to rebuild their sense of peace. The tragedy served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of compassion and understanding. As the sun set over Lawrence, Kansas, the town looked towards a new beginning, forever changed by the events of that fateful night. The sound of the gavel hitting the sound block marked the end of the trial, but the beginning of a long journey towards healing for everyone involved. Brittny was led away in handcuffs, her eyes filled with regret as she looked back at the courtroom. The community members hugged and supported each other, finding strength in their unity. A candle was lit at the memorial, a symbol of hope and remembrance for Gary Edens. The town of Lawrence, Kansas continued to move forward, forever changed but determined to find peace once more. The photo of Gary Edens at the memorial served as a reminder of the impact he had on the community and the legacy he left behind. Community members shared stories and memories of Gary, keeping his spirit alive through their words and actions. As the sun set over the memorial, it symbolized hope and the promise of a new beginning for the town of Lawrence, Kansas. A flower was placed at the memorial, a gesture of love and remembrance for a man who had touched so many lives. The town of Lawrence, Kansas looked towards a new day, carrying the lessons learned from the tragedy and the hope for a brighter future.